Hey man, how are you?
Well, we're recording on a Sunday morning because technical issues.
Yeah, technical issues. It seems like everything technical is changing every single minute.
Yes. It literally is like each and everything, whether it's things that we use or some of our clients use, it's everything seems to be in update mode or change mode. Everyone's trying to optimize everything and make things work better, integrate things. And you ever hear the saying, of course you have, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
I can really appreciate improvement, right? But it's like, what are we improving these things for when they work? And you see this over and over and over again. And our whole philosophy as business is simple, it's just not easy. And every time someone adds a new bell or a new whistle or a whatever it is to a piece of software that we use or a piece of hardware that we have, it seems like it makes it more complex and then allows for just way more nonsense. And there is, like, amazing parts of it, and that's the problem is, like, this sliver, this little thing that you see that is incredible about it when it works, it's amazing, but not while you're compromising the original intent of this thing that was very useful. So it's tough with technology, but we're kinda, like, completely reliant on it. Like, how many people's phone
Yep.
numbers do you know now?
Not many. The core the core group, that's it. I mean, because if I have no idea what other people's numbers are. It's
Dude, I don't know
crazy.
my son's phone number. We went to the gym the other day and he needed his phone number and I'm like, "I don't what's your phone number, kid?" Like, I don't know his phone number. If I had to call him in an emergency, I could not without my cell phone, having it
Right.
stored.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yep.
I we went to yesterday, my son had a doubleheader and we're driving to the field, which was like, I don't know, half an hour away. And my wife's like, "You don't need directions?" I'm like, "No." And she's like, all nervous, like, "I'm not gonna know how to get there." Like, I was born in 1979. I still know how to get places without it, but I wouldn't have known how to get there originally. So, like, I downloaded the software into my brain or the directions in the map, and you start to remember it. But that's the thing is, like, does technology allow us to use our brains better, use our brains different? Like, what really is it? Because take driving to a stadium, right?
Mhm.
Alright, so the first time, it tells you the path of least resistance, you get there, you don't have to worry, you're getting there safer because 'cause you're paying attention to the road instead of reading the map and, maybe you're getting there quicker. And then if you remember that, you have a new piece of information you can use, right? So is it truly allowing when we have technology doing things in the background for us all the time, is it allowing for us to be lazier, or is it allowing us to do more of the same better, or is it allowing us to do different things? And that's kind of the where are you at when you're in your business, when you hire somebody, when you delegate a responsibility? Because that's what technology really is. Technology is really allowing you to delegate a task that maybe is you shouldn't be doing. But then what do you do with that newfound time? Right? Where do you put that newfound time? Do you just sit back and mindlessly scroll through social media? Or do you use it to grow and learn and get better? And that's kind of what it's like with having an employee. Are you
Yeah.
now just
It's
like,
so
I'm
true.
free, I'm on the beach?
Yep. No, it's very true, and, you know, we see it, like, everybody is trying to f the thing too with technology is everybody's trying to find the right thing, the perfect software, and if I just had this perfect thing, I could go be doing this instead of doing that, right? And a lot of times when you're starting a business and you're trying to figure it out, it could be extremely overwhelming, and technology causes a lot of business owners stress in the beginning because they don't know what they don't know, and they don't know how to use what they don't know how to use. I mean, every day we're learning a new piece of technology, and I look at some of our technology as the employees, right? We like your CRM does the work of what maybe a salesperson and an administrative person would be doing to, put all your leads in one place and use it to sell things and to follow up with people, and it is this employee type thing, and now with AI, you kinda have several employees, and AI is replacing a lot of what we would task to an employee to do that would take hours to do, and we get it in the matter of minutes. And I think it's such a fascinating time that we're living in, but it could be very overwhelming because not everybody is ready for what's out there. And I think a lot of business owners struggle with that is they know they have to do this thing, but they're not ready for it. They're not ready for the new software. They're not ready for AI. They're not ready for how to use this technology yet in their business. So it actually that overwhelming feeling comes in and they actually lose time in trying to move themselves forward. So it's got its pluses and minuses. I think on one side, it can really help you find new time to do new things, but it's like I don't know what those new things are to do. And I think that's what confuses people.
Well, not only confuses, I think that the issue with hiring a new employee or bringing on a piece of technology to do something for you is, are you trying to do less of that or just do that better? Or are you trying to get that done so you can move over here and do something that's bigger, do something that's more important, do something that's more valuable? And that's usually the issue is people are just trying to shortcut things, especially new business owners. You know, they get fed up with the mundane parts of I have to do these things to run my business. And then they just want it done. But once it's done, now what are you replacing that time with? Are you going to make better? Are you going to make bigger? Or are you just going to go back and be like, all right, I don't have to do that anymore? And I think that's the difference between people that have something that's kind of good and people that have something that's amazing. It's okay. When I replace this process or this time with somebody or something, now I can go do this better. And that is a big missing piece where people aren't really implementing these things to grow. They're just implementing them so either they're done or they don't have to do them. And I think when you're just coming from a point of that, it might not allow you to get and achieve all the things you want in your life because here's the thing, you're always going to have problems in life. Forever. There's always problems to deal with. We are problem solving beings. That's really what we're put here for. And as you start to solve these problems, you're still going to have new ones. It's just these new problems that you have. Are they problems that you chose or are they problems that just appeared and now you said, "Oh, well that's a problem." And that's where people get really stressed and fed up with things is, there's so many problems because it's like nonsense. They're not these big things that they decided, I'm going to tackle. I'm going to take on this problem. So it's you have to really choose your problems because you're always going to deal with them, big or small, but you're the one who decides this is the problem I'm about to deal with. And I mean, it could be something as, your Amazon delivery showed up 3 hours later than you wanted, or you're gonna change the world with the business that you're creating.
Yeah. It's an interesting point you just made about problems and problem solving. Why do you see, or why do you think we see that, especially with newer business owners, that once they solve one problem, they go and they create another problem? Why do you think that is?
Well, give me an example.
Like, if take for let me think about it for a second.
And the reason I ask for an example is because depending on what new problem they solve may determine why I think they're creating them, right? Like, all right, let's say someone, they solve a problem of, they no longer have to send out emails all the time to, because now they have a workflow and a CRM that sends campaigns out. And they're like, wow, this is great. I don't have to send out 20 emails every Monday morning to my prospects because I've put them in a campaign that has a pipeline. And that's great. Okay. Now, what's the new problem they solve? The new problem could be like, well, I want to write the content inside of there so beautifully, or they could say I want to work with better clients, so I'm going to go look at the market, or they could say I'm going to now spend more time with my family, right? There's different directions that you can take once you solve a problem. And this is what I'm saying is you have to, when you're solving one problem, know why you're solving it in the next step. Not why you're solving it for why it was a problem originally, but once it is solved, then what are you going to do about it? So I maybe it's that people are thinking too superficially. They're thinking too, in the moment of just like, Here's an issue I have, not once I solve this issue, what I can now go tackle."
Well, I think, you know, I think a lot of people create more problems for themselves to solve because it's a sense of usefulness, right? They're trying to keep themselves useful and relevant. And I think that's what confuses a lot of people. There's such a need for them to stay in the situation because if they're not in the situation, then they're not useful. And I think one of our CEOs in particular, he has discovered that as he has built out his team, he feels sometimes useless. And because he has all the resources that he needs to do the work and accomplish the tasks, but he's struggling to figure out what he needs to do next. And I think that's what makes people create more problems is they get so used to where they're useful that when it comes time to not doing that, they don't feel as useful, and therefore, are they still relevant, or are they putting themselves out of a job, right? Are they putting themselves out of work?
Well, they kind of are, right? And that's when people get stuck in that comfort zone. And why do you always tell people like they shouldn't, like, there's these four different zones and you shouldn't really stay in that comfort zone, and it's tough to go through these different zones of growth and learning and knowledge, but why do people constantly get stuck in their comfort zone?
Because the immediate thing when you come out of a comfort zone is you enter the fear zone, right? You are trying to navigate, and a lot of people don't like to navigate into that fear. They don't want to address the fear. They see it as a paralyzing agent, fear. Fear stops us from doing a lot of things. It's that fight or flight or freeze. And most people, when they come out of a comfort zone, feel the freeze. They just are paralyzed by the fear. And that paralysis really stops them from moving forward. So they figure, why am I even gonna step into that? But because it's a progression. You have to move. The thing between comfort and learning is fear, right? And fear as an advisor says, okay, you have to go out and learn something. You have to go experience something. You have to go gain the knowledge of something. And a lot of people are just too afraid to go into that time of testing. People don't like to be tested. People, like, they get, exam anxiety, and they don't wanna be tested by the fear, and that's what fear does, is it creates all of these symptoms of paralysis, and it creates this doubt and this judgment of yourself that, "Oh, you should have known this already," or, "You shouldn't have to go and learn that thing." But we think as business owners sometimes, and I see this with a lot of our clients, they all think they should have all the answers. And you don't have all the answers. And that's why you have to pass through from the comfort zone to the fear zone, because that fear is going to trigger the answers that you really are necessarily looking for. You need to look for those things because if you don't learn and then you don't grow because the two zones that follow that fear are the learning and the growth zones, and that's what puts us into a new world, and then once you've learned and you've grown, you enter a new comfort zone, and then you have the cycle starts all over again, and I just think people are so everybody just wants to get to the end point, and there is no end point. It's a cycle that's continuous over and over and over. You get used to something, then you have to go through fear again, then you gotta go learn about it, and then you grow, and then you're back into comfort, and then you gotta go fear and learn and grow, and it's over and over. And people don't like to pass through those cycles. And I think that's why a lot of people just stop and stay in the comfort zone. And I think technology, to go back to technology, what we were talking about earlier, technology forces us out of that comfort zone so frequently and so often because it's constantly changing. I mean, you and I tell people all the time, take 90 days to work on this. When was the last time we got through any software without an update in less than 90 days? Like, every day there's a software update. My iPhone, I think, updates at least once a week lately, and it's like this constant new information, and it throws us into a spiral, and you have to figure out, "Okay, am I gonna try to keep up, or am I gonna try to just keep learning?" Right? And that's a big difference. People feel like they have to keep up, and you don't have to keep up necessarily. My opinion is you just have to keep learning, and that will help you to keep up.
But that's the thing is, like, keep learning in what? When people are when people are trying to continually learn, there it feels like many times in business, especially for newer business owners, they're trying to learn new things, not trying to learn how to do the thing they're doing better. Right? Like you're going, it's a mile wide and and an inch deep on their knowledge and what they're learning. Where I'd rather people stay very, very narrow in what they're learning and go super deep on it and become very proficient at it, master that thing. I forget who was a Malcolm Gladwell or somebody said, 10,000 hours, to be a master at anything, which is, if you look at it, that's about 5 years, right? It's like a full 40 hours a week for 5 years, somewhere around there is 10,000 hours. And like, have you done anything the same for 5 years, right? And well, when people have jobs, many times they do. And then they go apply for the promotion. And you have to do the same thing in your business. Now, I'm not telling you got to spend 5 years, learning your CRM, or 5 years perfecting your sales script, or 5 years becoming proficient at whatever it is that you're actually selling, your product or your service. But you have to spend time getting better at that thing. And what most people do is they have this fear of failure, right? And this fear of failure is really more, and this is how I define it. I like to take things and shrink them down as simple as possible. And it's just can do, won't do, right? It's like I can do something, but I won't do it because you're paralyzed by this fear. That's failure in itself. People are scared of the failure that comes on the other side of doing something, but you can't fail when you do something. You learn and then you either improve or you make decisions to stop or delegate. But that you don't fail, you just get new information to make the next decision. What happens with real failure is you're like, all right, I can do something, even if I'm not going to be good at it. I can do something, but I won't do it. That right there is failure. That's the thing. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that it's like, I'm so scared to fail, so I'm not gonna do it. You failed. Where if you said, I'm so scared to fail and I did it, you don't fail. You learn, you improve, you make decisions to delegate or go deeper on it. But that's the thing is someone gives up and then they're like, okay, let's go over here and do the next thing and over here and do the next thing. I mean, look at you and I. In the beginning of this year, we decided to refocus our attention on something, and it's now July, and we've been working 6 months on getting better at this specific thing that we're doing, which is our workshop. And we're constantly iterating on this. We're not going outside of that bubble and saying, okay, well, now let's create a different thing. It's staying in here and bring all the resources we have together to improve this. And that's a big difference. It's like if you can do but you won't do, that is failure in itself. But why, Tom, are people so scared of failing?
It it comes back to a lot of things. I mean, the people pleaser forces people not to wanna fail because they wanna make everybody happy, and they wanna do the right thing, and it inherently goes back to your experiences as a child and how you looked at life and how your parents raised you in looking at different situations. And, this fear of failure, I always equate it to fear of success too, because a lot of people are so afraid to be successful because they have to maintain and sustain that success that it's just as much as the fear of failure and not achieving the thing. But my thing is all fear is the same. It's just fear of the unknown, and people get caught up in they like to label things. That's my answer. They like to label things. We like to label things as a failure or a success. Why do we label it? Just let it be. Like, did you learn? Great. Then you didn't fail. The true failure is when you fail to learn. And if we every experience has to teach us something, and it will continuously happen until you learn that lesson. You will see patterns in your life, and I mean, you're the pattern expert. I always enjoy the way you look at patterns, and you did that whole year of pattern recognition, and it's the patterns of our behavior that allow us to continue to fail because we don't change, or we don't look for the new way, or we don't question what was supposed to be learned in those situations. That's why people fail. And people are so afraid to fail because they don't wanna feel like a quote unquote "loser." They don't wanna feel like they suck at something. It's the harsh judgment that we place on ourselves. It's the ego's judgment of ourself that is really an internal dialogue, and that's what makes us afraid to fail because we don't wanna have to face that judge. When we have to face that judge, we get all screwed up. But, like, speaking of
I think
patterns.
you said
Yeah,
something interesting though. Come back to what you were gonna say in a second.
yeah.
I think people are really scared to fail because they put these labels on things, and really what it is these labels are these expectations. Like, if I do this, here's what I'm going to be. If I learn to play the guitar, I'm going to get up in a cafe and play in front of hundreds of people, right? If I, take on these clients, I'm going to get them these results. If I hire this person, they're going to do these jobs. They have these labels, these expectations.
Mhm,
And I think what most people miss, especially business owners who are really growing into a CEO and starting to cross that $1 million mark, it's not about the result. And it's so counterintuitive to think that way in business because it's all about results in business, but it's actually not about the result when you're building. It's about the
mhm.
work to maybe get the result. And if you can just focus on, hey, okay, yes, of course we want a goal and reach that milestone, but the actual achievement is in the achievement of building it. Okay? It's doing that work itself. And when we put these expectations on it, it's going to take a really long time to achieve that. You're not going to feel it. You're going to feel like it's a failure, but those little failures, that knowledge that you're getting along the way on how to do it better or how to make it more successful or how to make it more efficient, that is success in itself. And people don't look at it that way. They look at those setbacks as I failed. But no, 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 that was just the way that you're able to get to the ultimate success that you're looking for. And people only look at that end goal because they're like, I'm supposed to be able to do this, but you're not. You're supposed to go through it and learn how to do that. That's life. That's business. This is getting better, becoming a master at anything is going through that process. And I'm not telling you to enjoy the journey. It's going to suck. You're not going to enjoy it. So don't think you're going to enjoy the journey. Just understand that the journey, that hard work that you're putting in is the success in itself.
It's funny, I was going through our LinkedIn and the other day, and I was commenting on people's posts, and somebody said something about failure and how it sucks, right? And suck is SUC, and that's the same way success starts, SUC. If you can't suck, you can't have success. Like, that's the perspective that I came away with. If you can't suck, you can't have success, right? It's just like,
Well, just say it a different way. Success starts with suck.
yeah, success does start with the suck. I mean, you have no other choice but to suck. I mean, that's the thing that all of these accidental CEOs, every single one of you out there that's an accidental CEO, you have to recognize you have to suck if you want success. It's going to come with the territory, and you're right. And the results piece is we that hyperachiever sabotaging habit. Like, I got to get to the result. I got to get the thing, and I didn't do it right, so therefore I failed, therefore I suck. Oh, I'll never get the
But
success,
wait a
but
minute, I'm gonna
you have
interrupt
to
you
get it.
because I want you personally for everybody here to go deeper on it because we can identify it. Okay, it's the hyperachiever, da da da. And you're definitely 100% right. But what is in and what is beyond that hyperachiever? Like, okay, when people do recognize, like, yeah, it's the hyperachiever that I just want to get this result, and it's like, all right, what Adam's saying or what Tom's saying is I'm supposed to actually enjoy this thing, but what is it in there? What allows inside of that when you do recognize, all right, I'm after the result here. I could slow down and appreciate what I get to do and how I'm doing it and learn here. So how do you go from that being a sabotaging behavior into you being able to recognize and shift your mindset into, okay, I'm going to use this for my advantage?
Yeah, I mean, we've said this many times, and you said it way back when in one of the courses we did. The goal is the work, right? The goal is the journey. The goal is putting in the effort and everything else. And I think as a when you if you're gonna mitigate and reduce that hyperachiever saboteur, you have to realize that there is a process that has to take place. The journey is the process is the work is the understanding that's needed in order to get to the next phase. Because, yeah, you may get the result, but what everything that you learn along the way to getting that result is what's going to allow you to get other results in the future. If you just stop at, I just got to get this result, I got to get the result, you're missing the whole opportunity to learn. You're missing the whole journey. You're missing that whole process. So you have to reframe the way you think about it and say, the result is important, but it's the work that I'm going to do to get to the result that is going to be the greatest teacher for me and the greatest experience for me, because I will have the opportunity to work through the issues. If I'm just focused on getting the result, I'm going to take the easy route, and I'm going to cut corners, and I'm going to cut the angles because I want that result. And by cutting those corners, I'm not going to learn the necessary things. And then when that result no longer is functional, right? Because you could work on something for a long time and you can get the result and you'd be so happy you got the result, but that result is flawed in so many ways. The product doesn't work so well. The experience that you're giving your clients doesn't work so well, but that was the result of something you thought was the result. And that was the one I had to get. Instead of recognizing, oh no, I needed to figure out X, Y, and Z. And it's in the reflection sometimes of the result that the process then comes back into play. But if you're going to mitigate that sabotaging habit, you've got to change how you think about it. And you've got to constantly think the goal of everything that you're doing is the work and the process to getting to that result. And if you can reframe your mindset around that, you're going to stop cutting corners. You're going to stop looking for the easy way. You're going to recognize, I got to do all these things in order to get a very good result so that I can learn and get further results, because the result this time is not the end result.
Well, so here's what I think I'm realizing is most business owners need, or they usually want, but sometimes they need to get something done, right? And I think what's happening is, especially when they're accidental CEOs and they just build something that has success and now all of a sudden they're in it, right? They don't realize it, but they're in it and they're running this company and like, holy cow, I have all these things that have to get done. They set these unrealistic timeframes on when they're going to achieve certain results. And here's something that I would tell you to do is use technology, right? Go into whatever AI system you're using, go to ChatGPT or whatever else it is and say, hey, look, I want to achieve this result. How long should it take? I think that is something that can change everybody's life if they just put realistic time frames on what it should take to achieve something. Because look at this, how many times have people gone on and tried to open up their computer or log into a software and they're like, oh my God, this is taking forever. And maybe it took 5 seconds instead of the 0.5 seconds it usually takes. And it feels like, oh my God, oh my God. Well, reality should say that, well, yeah, I should click it and it should open. Okay. But in the grand scheme of things, how long, if it took 5 seconds to open something, that is an eternity on your phone or on your computer. It feels like that. But in reality, it's not. It's 5 seconds. And maybe the reason that happened is because your cache got cleared and new things had to be learned by your computer or your phone or something, or the software did update. And as you're building anything in your business, There's the reality of what it's going to take from scratch, the reality of what it's gonna take if you've already been doing this over and over again, but you have to understand what phase, what position are you in, and how long is it going to take you to achieve this result? And something you may think is gonna take you a day, but it's actually gonna take you a week. And you're so scared because you're like, "I don't know how to do it in a day," but it shouldn't take you a day, it should take you a week. You have to go through the process of understanding how to do it, and then, yes, once you know how to do it, you can do it better and optimize it and become more efficient at it. But that's where most people end up is unrealistic timeframes on getting whatever result it is. And man, if you just took a moment to go look and say, how long should this take me? At least you'll have some sort of a time frame that wasn't made up in your own, psychology space of who you are and what you expect.
You just hit on something that I wanna ask you. When you clear cache on a computer, it wipes out everything that you've already previously done. So that login process, you have to re-log into all of your accounts. It's like the system has to relearn. Why do you think people resist relearning? 'Cause I see that a lot with our clients. They resist the relearning. Why do you think that is?
Well, I don't even think it's relearning. I think it's reminding. And someone said this once, we don't really need to learn more. We just need to be reminded of what we had once learned. And the thing is we have these things that are sitting on the shelf that we have to dust off and go ahead and be like, all right, I'm gonna do that thing again. And yeah, I mean, I played golf on the 4th of July. That was the last time I played golf. And I had to, for a moment, relearn how to do one thing. Okay, I didn't have to say, all right, how am I gonna do this? I'd be like, wait, how did I used to do this? I used to do it this way, and I would do that thing, and I had to change the grip on my hand and change where my feet were positioned. And once I did that, I ended up shooting a 40 on the front nine, which is great. That's an amazing score. But I took a moment to not learn how to do something, remind myself what I had already learned. And I think that in itself is the problem, is where people are constantly seeking improvement, right? Learning something new, but that new thing you're going to learn is usually stacked on something you previously learned. And if you don't remind yourself of like, hey, here's the skills I have, here are the tools I have, and here's how to use them, remember? Oh, yeah, that's how I use them. Then that new thing you're going to learn won't work and you'll get frustrated.
That's so true. So true. It's crazy. I tell you, it's such an amazing evolution that we get to witness as we watch each of our clients in that aha moments, and those aha moments come a lot from the relearning, the reminding, like you just said. They come from the new experiences when you get to tie something together that they saw as disconnected and we connect it for them. And I think that's what so many people really struggle with is finding the connections and being able to see everything that they're doing does connect. We don't always see the big picture. And that's what I think is the hardest thing for a lot of people. It's hard to see that vision. It's hard to create that image that you want for yourself, you want for your life, and you want for your business. And when we lose that ability to see the connections when we're trying to figure out the puzzle, it's hard to understand that it was all for this intention, it was all for this purpose. And I think people have to recognize that the fear of failure, the relearning of things, the embracing the hyperachiever is all part of building the final picture and what you're trying to achieve. So don't lose that that's all connected and that everything does happen for a reason. Don't try to find the unique reason for why something is happening right now, but just understand and embrace that the reason is the what because you need to learn something now, and it's going to come into play later on in creating that final picture. And I think people lose sight of that. Like, why do you think people struggle with coming up with a vision? When we ask them what's their mission, what's their vision, they often struggle with the vision part and what they want for life. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think people struggle with mission and vision, especially to come up with the vision, is because they're not doing the mission correctly. They're thinking that the mission is what they want to become, and the mission is what you are actually doing. And I think people don't actually struggle with their vision statement. They struggle with their mission statement. Most people, most business owners, when we sit with them and we ask them that, the mission statement and the vision statement, it's everything they say in their mission is typically like, all right, well, if I only do these things, I do that, I will one day become this. And that's not what a mission is. A mission is everything you do every single day is to achieve that mission. You're already doing it, right? You're doing it, you're doing it, you're doing it, you're doing it. Where the vision is like what I aspire to be one day. And I know that sounds convoluted, and it is. But it's like, hey, if I do all these things every single day, I'll one day become that. But the mission is what you're actually doing. So, give you an example. Like, if the mission is, I'm going to, go gather rocks, I'm going to gather rocks. Like, that's the mission, right? But if the vision was one day I'm going to build a wall out of rocks, that's the vision. But you can't create that wall of rocks until you collect the rocks. And that's the thing that people get stuck in is they want to be like, all right, I want to build a wall. So what do I need? I need rebar, I need frame, I need concrete, I need this. And like, but hey, pal, that's great, but you don't have the rocks. You need the rocks. And it's like that is where most people get stuck is they're stepping over, they're looking past all the things that are necessary because they just want the result. They don't want to look down and be like, holy shit, that's a lot of work in front of me, and I got to do that. And I'm not saying they're not willing to do the work, they're just looking past it. All right, man. Let's wrap this up. What do you want to close this off on?
Well, listen, I hope that as you listen to these things, you get different takeaways. And, the takeaway that I would hope you come away with is, you know, learn. Just learn every single day. See this as a learning experience and recognize that it all is going to work out for something in particular that you may not even know you're being prepared for right now. And if you struggle and if you're looking for a way to crack the code, so to speak, on how to get to your first $1 million, we would invite you to attend our accidental CEO workshops. We host these workshops virtually and in person. Virtually, we do them 3 times a month. In person, we do it once a month. But check out the Accidental CEO interactive workshop that we host. They're on Wednesdays, all different times, so that if one time is better for you, you can attend. But we invite you to check it out. We'll put the link in the show notes, and we will hopefully see you there.